I'm Megan Skidmore, and this is Beyond the Shadow of Doubt. I am a woman, daughter, sister, spouse, mother, life coach, and person of faith on a mission to normalize asking questions and allowing doubts, not only in a faith journey, but in all aspects of life. Join me in bringing this traditionally taboo topic out of the shadows of shame and into the sunlight. I'm a firm believer that we normalize through more talking and having more discussion. When we're more authentic about our journey, we are more powerful because shame has no power in the face of authenticity. A few episodes back, I started a 3-part series on vulnerability. I believe there's too much at stake when we hide our true selves. It takes concerted and conscious effort. In episode 30, I spoke of it more in the context of vulnerability with others, and that a large part of being authentic is allowing yourself to be and feel vulnerable. And in order to feel vulnerable, we have to be able to see feelings not as failures, but as an opportunity to teach us. Brene'Brown said in her book, Daring Greatly, if we want greater clarity in our purpose or deeper and more meaningful spiritual lives, vulnerability is the path. She continued, I know this is hard to believe when we've spent our lives thinking that vulnerability and weakness are synonyms, but it's true. I define vulnerability as uncertainty, risk, and emotional exposure. And that's found on page 34. What about vulnerability within our own selves? What would that conversation sound like or be like? Recently, I reread an email from Kara Lowenthal, Juris Doctorate, Master Certified Coach, and it was dated August of 2021. It is an awesome exploration of this concept. So I'm going to share parts of it with you. And she begins by explaining elements from the model that we are all taught, those who certify through the Life Coach School, CTFAR. Circumstances trigger our thoughts, which bring up feelings, and we act from those feelings or don't act, as the case may be, and ultimately that produces our results. And that result always goes back to our thought. So she starts off her email, other people's words and actions are neutral circumstances. Our brain interprets them and decides what we will think and feel about them, which means vulnerability and the fear of being rejected or hurt by others isn't as intuitive as it seems. It's about more than the fear of what other people will think of us. True vulnerability comes from a fear that our own thoughts will hurt us, that we will reject ourselves. Wow, mind blown when I read this. And she continues on and gives an example of how and why this is true. So I'm going to give you that opportunity to do so yourself. Think about something that you share all the time and never feel vulnerable about. Perhaps it's your eye color or the car that you drive or the pet that you own. If you were to tell someone about this, would you feel vulnerable? Probably not. However, what if they said, oh, I don't date people who have Shih Tzus for pets or who drive Hondas or fill in the blank? You'd probably think that's weird and you'd just carry on with your life. Now think about something that you do feel vulnerable about and imagine telling someone about it and hearing them reject you. Kara asks, what's the difference? Your thoughts about the information, thoughts, or feelings that you shared with the person. When we feel vulnerable, it means we're disclosing or sharing something about which we feel anxiety, shame, distress, or fear. And she continues on, we don't feel vulnerable about things we feel good or neutral about, like our eye color or what type of car we drive. We only feel vulnerable about things we already have negative thoughts about. She asserts that our discomfort is really about the fear that someone is going to confirm our negative thoughts about ourselves. And that is why it's so scary. She explains it so well. When we worry that sharing with someone will drive them away, we're really driving ourselves away. When we fear their rejection, we're really fearing our own rejection of ourselves. And this is the danger of outsourcing your opinion about yourself to someone else. This is tied to the reason why vulnerability can feel great, because when we share something that we feel ashamed of with someone else and they're kinder to us than we are to ourselves, then we can sometimes borrow those kind thoughts and think them for ourselves and then feel good. But she continues, the reverse of this is true as well. If they react negatively to our vulnerability, then it feels 10 times worse, because now we have evidence to bolster our own negative thoughts. Kara asserts, the truth is the only person we are truly emotionally vulnerable to as adults is ourselves. That the only person you're emotionally vulnerable to is you. I think it gets sticky when you are bringing in relationships or situations that involves abuse, that involves trauma. And I think that is definitely a case where this isn't going to apply. But in general, I agree with the concepts that she's sharing here. For instance, she continues, vulnerability is rightly defined as sharing yourself with someone when you feel scared to do so. She asserts that it's important to understand that what you fear is yourself. And I think that's partially true. Sometimes I think that in cases of authority, and again, like I mentioned, abuse, trauma, there are other real true fears outside of yourself. However, in general, there's discomfort in showing up to share with someone. True vulnerability is giving yourself the opportunity to hurt you by being honest and open. I was deeply affected. There's more to this email, but I was really deeply affected after reading this, profoundly in thought. This is the truest form of vulnerability. And this is what makes having your own coach so needed, so valuable. A life coach creates a container within which you and your coach can practice these concepts, can practice being vulnerable, practice being honest with yourself, and then be willing to be open to whatever comes up, and you're in a safe space. The coach is holding that space for you, will not pass judgment, will not tell you what to think, will not tell you what not to think. A good coach is going to help you, will take your hand, we could say, and walk you through the experience and hold space. Kara goes on, true vulnerability isn't about sharing our thoughts and feelings with someone else so they can fix them or hurt them, because they can do neither. She says, we share our thoughts and feelings with someone so we can experience the willingness to show up as ourselves. Relationships with others are how we learn to deepen and mature our relationship with ourselves. Vulnerability isn't about passing the responsibility for your emotional experience onto somebody else by expecting them to validate or reassure you. It's about learning to be present in your relationship with yourself at a deeper level. It's about learning how to share what you think is shameful and love yourself through that process. If you're lucky, the person you're sharing it with will model that love for you by holding space for the parts that you aren't proud of or you. But even if they don't, you can learn to do that for yourself. Going back to what I said just a little bit ago, this is where a life coach comes in and can help you. In wrapping up, I wanted to point out how important it is to note her mention of shame. That is more often than not the source of these messy feelings, viewpoints, and thoughts about whatever subject matter that you're talking about or you're considering being vulnerable about. Shame, it's all lies. Shame tells us that we're not good enough, that we're not worthy. If we can get past that self-judgment, that self-rejection that comes from our thoughts or our opinions that's based in shame, then maybe, just maybe, we can begin to show up authentically and vulnerably to ourselves first and foremost, and then with friends and loved ones, and then even extend that into our faith communities. Thanks for listening. Don't miss any upcoming episodes by subscribing and following. I'm currently hosting a podcast giveaway. All you have to do is leave a review on Apple Podcasts, screenshot it, and upload it to my Google Doc. The link to enter and to the Google Doc is in the show notes or in the bio of my Instagram profile. Make sure to join me later this week for parts 1 and 2 of my interview with Richard Papa Osler, who works to build bridges with LGBTQ+ members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. He is a former bishop of a young single adult ward and the host of Listen, Learn, and Love podcast. He's also the author of Listen, Learn, and Love, Embracing LGBTQ+ Latter-day Saints, published in 2020, as well as Listen, Learn, and Love, Improving Latter-day Saint Culture, published in 2022. Come join me in Hopeful Spaces, a Dallas Hope Charities component of Hopeful Discussions, which is sponsored by Mercedes-Benz Financial Services USA. Hopeful Spaces is a monthly parent, caregiver, and ally support group facilitated by Megan Skidmore Coaching. To join is free. Simply send an email to chc@dallashopecharities.org. Visit meganskidmorecoaching.com, where you can find this podcast, as well as additional free resources. Check the podcast show notes on any platform for links to sources cited. Follow me on Facebook or Instagram for more and to send me a DM. To help the podcast grow, please follow, rate, and review, as well as share it with a friend. Beyond the Shadow of Doubt is a proud member of the Dialogue Podcast Network, which is a part of the Dialogue Journal found at dialoguejournal.com/podcast network. Founder Eugene England was a Mormon writer, teacher, and scholar who wrote, "My faith encourages my curiosity and awe. It thrusts me out into relationship with all creation and encourages me to enter into dialogue. My hope is that this podcast is an extension of that vision." Thanks for being here. Until next time.